Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. The spring transfer portal is officially open, gentlemen. Wow.
Open.
Guess what?
Some names are in there.
But not as many as last year.
No, definitely not.
And I would expect that ASU gains more players that can contribute than losing players that wouldn't contribute on this team. They're going to lose some good locker room guys, sure. Some guys that can compete for backup positions. But with the place that they're in right now, I think, obviously this spring portal, it's not as important as the winter or like the first portal was, but it can be beneficial for the depth of the team.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind them going out and potentially looking for a backup quarterback to come in here. Jeff Sims is fine, but I think they could upgrade there. It is hard to find just somebody that's committed to being a backup quarterback. That's tough these days when there's opportunities to get NIL, maybe at a slightly lower level, and you can be the starter, say for like a MAC school or whatever. But yeah, portal opening this time of year. It's always interesting to just it's for guys that want to stick around, I guess, through spring practice and then see where they're at, because it's definitely guys that like the school for the most part, unless you're Nico Iamaleava.
Nice, good job.
Yeah, unless you're Nico Iamaleava,
UCLA, great.
You like the allegedly, you like the school and you want to try to stick out there, but at there's only so many spots for so many people.
It's interesting you bring up the quarterback side of it, because that's the position where, as far as percentage of the room, quarterback is probably the room that's lost the most so far to the spring transfer portal. Both walk-ons, of course. We talk about Navi Bruzon, big local guy who won the Gatorade Player of the Year here 2 times.
Kind of smaller local guy.
Definitely smaller. He's 5'10". That's definitely a big hindrance.
But he can play.
To why
he
can't play at the Power 4 level. But yeah, he'll definitely go down and like dominate a Mountain West school, for example, or something like that. Christian Hunt, another one that's in the portal out of the quarterback room. He's another walk-on, but he's 6'5". Started to look pretty good this spring. It kind of looked like he might be the QB3 at points. But with them both out, you're kind of looking for a QB3 now, because in case Sam has to miss 1 game or 2 games, suddenly you're down to relying on like Michael Tollefson as a true freshman to be your backup quarterback.
Butter.
Yeah, and Jesse, something that we've discussed a little bit, but we didn't really get into depth about, is this defensive line and getting, to the quarterback. And obviously we would like to see more pressure from this defensive line.
Yeah, Damon and I talked about that last week.
Yeah, but in terms of like the guys that they lost, Chance Simmons and JP Dieter, they did contribute a little bit, but I think the guys that they have
weren't in the 2 deep.
Yeah, exactly. And if they are going to continue to boost up this defensive line, this portal window is the perfect chance to do so. And we'll have to see if they do that. And I guess that's we talked a lot about the secondary and what they're going to do. At slot corner, we think we're seeing what's going to happen there. Montana Warren's been doing a fantastic job there over spring from what you've seen, Damon, and what you've told me. But in order for those guys to they can stick in coverage for so long. If you can get to the quarterback, the coverage isn't as it's not as big as it would need to be if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, getting pressure helps ease up the job of DBs so much, just because, it's less time they have to spend in coverage, and it's, instead of a very level-headed quarterback, it's maybe a more frantic quarterback because of that pressure is getting home. So, with the injury that they suffered at cornerback with ASU, that we're going to get into here in a second, I think that's, a big part for them to indeed start getting home to the quarterback like they have been this spring. There have been a couple of those times where Kenny's had to get on guys about, keep Sam out of harm's way, and things like that. So you're starting to see the pressure get home a little bit more.
My sweet prince Ian Hershey's in the portal. so sad about that just because I really like his last name. It's a great name, obviously, if all my chocolate lovers out there like Hershey Kisses, Hershey Bars, all that stuff.
This is not payola.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
No free ads.
But let's get a little bit into the offense and what we've
Well,
seen.
I'd like to hold on real quick.
Yeah,
I would
sure.
like to say, the Alton McCaskill and Ian Hershey departures. Alton, he's going to be good somewhere. And then Ian Hershey, he really struggled last year. We saw, I mean, he was in and out of a job basically. And so this doesn't surprise me. I was honestly
he
shocked
lost
that he stuck
the job
around.
to a couple different times
A
throughout the
couple
season.
different times. And I honestly, with what they did in the transfer portal back in December.
Yeah, with Gomez, right?
Yeah, with Gomez. Yep. Then I was surprised he stuck around. But yeah, I think the kicking position will be much upgraded this year. And I hope the best for all these guys. They're
Yeah, and
good
that's what
kids.
Kenny Dillingham always puts on his X account. He always says that.
None of these guys are like the Nico situation. They're just guys that want to play.
Well,
more.
how do you know they don't want to get more money? Everybody wants to get more money.
I mean,
It's,
yeah, but I think these like walk-on guys mostly just want to play more.
You mentioned Jesus a little bit.
Yeah.
Just want to say he's been awesome in spring camp.
the sound is what you told me, right?
The sound has been the big thing. Watching him kick-
ASMR kicking football.
Yeah.
Honestly, and Damon sent us a video of him kicking, and it sounded very good.
It's just a different sound coming off his foot.
Sick.
NFL leg.
No matter where he's kicking from, it's always clear above the crossbar and about level with the top of the uprights. So he's getting them through with lots of room to spare, and I mean right down the middle today at least. And the other day he had a nearly 60-yarder, I think. And so him just being that automatic option, it would be so huge for ASU since that just wasn't a facet of the game that they had last year. And then like you mentioned with Alton McCaskill, he is definitely good enough to play at the power conference level, I think. It's just that ASU's running back room is ridiculous this year. And even with the 5 guys that they have now, with Demarius Robinson, the true freshman, and Jason Brown still there as well, that 5-man group is a ridiculous group where I think anyone could come in and give you good reps in game.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of who's going to get the majority of them, I think.
Speaking of the offense, Damon, and every year there's a guy that kind of sticks out in camp when you talk about the wide receiver core. A couple of years ago it was Andre Johnson, and then it was Malik McClain last year. Who's your guy this year, Damon?
Jaron Hamilton.
Yep.
Catching deep balls.
Now let's hope he, is able to contribute a little more than those two guys. Obviously, McClain.
He's got a much better quarterback, as
Well,
far
I mean,
as the spring
Mc-
camp quarterback.
Okay, got you.
Yes.
I was like, I mean, McClain had Sam Levitt, and
Yeah, okay, but
He didn't have the established.
also,
Got it,
and,
okay,
and
got
let's
you.
not forget, Jesse reminded me of this yesterday when I was talking about this, that Malik McClain made one of the biggest catches in ASU history last season. So props to him, obviously. But
he also had
it
a
wasn't,
very weird situation last year
it
where he had to
wasn't
go
his-
home over the summer, and so he
Yeah.
missed a lot of time. And
It wasn't the best. But yes, Jaron Hamilton, kind of a speedster,
super speedster. They call him Turbo.
but he's got hands too, right?
Got hands.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been making a lot of catches. I wouldn't say it's quite on the level to kind of cater to Jesse here a little bit. Wouldn't say it's quite to the level of Derek Eusebio's hands.
he's gonna be so good. 30 catches for him this year.
But Jaron Hamilton, every single day it feels like him and Sam are connecting on a deep ball. And Sam has talked about kind of the extra work that Jaron has started to put in. And, that's a big thing for Sam, of course, because of all the extra work that he puts in. And so for him to just kind of be getting on the same page more with these newer receivers, I think it's boding well for the offense.
Yeah, and Jesse, Damon and I kind of discussed this yesterday. We were talking about, the connection that Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson had toward the end of last season and the final 6 weeks of the season, I would say, before
Final 8 weeks, really.
Yeah, before Tyson went down with that injury. If we can see that from 2 or 3 different guys, I mean, this offense could just be clicking. And, we talked about this as well a few weeks ago, Jesse. In terms of this offense, we're going to see them pass a little more.
yeah.
But obviously they have depth at the running back position, which we just discussed. But if they can start clicking in terms of all those wide receivers being on the same page and having that connection with Sam Levitt, I mean, I'm excited to see that.
I do expect them to pass more, but you know how I am. I want to see them
Run the football.
stick to the run,
Run the dang ball.
Yeah, run. Yep, that's me. I love teams that run the ball. I think that's the best way to win football games is to, bleed the clock away. I've made Damon mad playing college football by the video game by actually doing that. So
You're one of those guys.
yeah, I am one of those guys. So
There's
yeah,
still a lot of like run replacement stuff in their passing game. Like Kenny talked today about Sam taking the check down more than ever before, and so there's plays like that. We know how big the screens are in this offense. There's going to be still plenty of run type of stuff. It's just we'll see how much of a 50-50 split it is between handing the ball off and not.
But this will go.
I do like big plays though.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Jaden
Like,
Hamilton, big play guy.
I see. This is the type of football that I like. I like running the ball that sets up big plays, and that's what I hope that they can do.
like that Melquan 4th and 1.
Exactly, and I felt like they started to do that at the end of the year last year, is where they stuck to the ground with Cam so much, but then it would be like, we're going to take the top off the defense, and they would do that. But I do think it's very important, as Jeremy said, for them to have somebody else other than Jordan Tyson, making plays.
Whether it be, McLean, Hamilton.
Exactly.
I mean, Mateer as well as a tight end.
Yeah.
McLean's been really consistent this spring as well.
Because I won't be terrified if they get an injury. Like when last year, I was like, I was so scared when Jordan Tyson went out.
Yeah, but it goes to show specifically Sam Levitt's leadership. If he can get on the same page with multiple receivers, it will show, because obviously you're going to want to throw it to Jordan Tyson a lot, especially with how he was playing at the end of last season. But being able to spread the ball around will make defenses go crazy. And that's what you want as an offense.
Jordan Tyson?
Or Sam Lev. No, I
That's
can't figure it out. No.
Yep. Okay.
Anyway, sad news as well. And we got to get to it. Plaz Johnson, ACL tear.
Real shame. He was breaking out kind of this spring.
He was going to be, a backup in terms of, the depth at defensive back and, corner position, but
had been a special teams ace already.
Yeah,
and was looking to kind of affect the defense a little more this season too.
That's where I'm bummed, really, is the special teams, because special teams are super important.
That's why they're special.
Exactly. A lot of people don't, give enough credit to special teams.
ASU lost a game because of special teams last year.
I think you could argue that they lost multiple games because of special teams. So, and that's mostly the kicking game. They had really good other special teams last year, but yeah, I'm just, it's a big loss for the special teams unit, and he was probably going to get on the field in some way defensively. So it's tough to see a depth piece go down on defense. And, I feel for him, and I hope that he has a speedy recovery. And, it's March. It's April now. So,
they can bring in a guy that can help out.
That's true. But I was also thinking,
you want him to recover for the CFP?
He could potentially recover for the CFP. That's not
medical redshirt still.
Exactly. Yeah, the postseason games do not count for.
We're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves.
I know. I'm just. I like to focus on. Hoping that the kid gets better.
I was talking to Damon about this yesterday in terms of just like seeing all the videos at camp, like hearing all the quotes, understanding where this team is and where they went last year. Like, you can't help but not get excited about the possibility of what this team can accomplish this year, especially with all the returners. We haven't seen a team like this since the 2014 season, after they had such a great season in 2013, and then going also into the 2015 season after that. So,
and even with like the Plaz Johnson stuff, like we talk about Javen Robinson and Keith Abney being those returning starters that you can bank on. But another one of these breakouts from this spring so far, Rodney Bimage Jr., has been huge this spring. It feels like every single day he's making plays, getting interceptions, and, he might be to the point where he can push those two starters as to maybe it's broken up into thirds, that snap distribution for the outside corners. I think Bimage has shown a ton in the spring, especially as Javen is being held out for some minor things, as many of the established defenders are. I think it's huge. Obviously, also having Nyland Green, one of the Purdue transfers, in that room as well. I think that room is pretty well established enough to handle an injury like that.
Nobody caught my Cliff Kingsbury reference there.
What did you say?
I said it's a minor thing.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember? I forget. I think it was heading into the 2021 season where Cliff Kingsbury in training camp that year was just like, "It's a minor thing. It's a minor thing." He said it so many times that we were able to make a montage here of that.
Great. Okay. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff. Next week is FanFest. Basically going to be what like a spring game would be, right? It's gonna...
There's going to be a lot of scrimmaging. Kenny, not as much as last year, but there will be a lot of scrimmaging. So
that's Friday.
There's a lot of fun activities.
5 to 7:30 p.m. Friday night, April 25th.
A lot of fun activities, and this for me is a big deal for me for one reason. I want to see how well this fan base comes out and supports this team in the spring game FanFest.
Yeah, let's just not call it a spring game anymore. Let's call it the Fan Fest.
Okay. FanFest scrimmage.
It's not a scrimmage.
It's replacing what would have been a spring game. Basically.
Yeah, but it is the Fan Fest. So
but
let's just call it that.
Anyway, I do want to see a massive crowd for this because of what they did last year. This should not be what we've seen in years past. This should be 20,000, 30,000, something like that. There needs to be a big crowd out for this. This is a team that has huge expectations this year to be really good, and was really good last year. And all these players, for the most part, I know we mentioned some guys transferring, but like the guys on this team have stuck it out, and the fans need to show up and support these guys for sticking with ASU, for what they did last year, and to honestly get them hyped up moving forward.
But it's not like a chore. Like, there's a ton of fun
stuff.
No,
it's going to be fun. Yeah,
going
of course.
on at this thing. And,
of course.
like, there's special events. If you have kids, bring your kids out, make it a whole family thing. They have what they're calling family fan zones. So, like, throughout the day, there's, as far as the night goes, like, there's stuff all over the stadium that can be, whether it comes to like merchandise things,
you can enter to win prizes,
different things like that. There's going to be so many things. And then at the end of the night, fireworks show. And who doesn't love a fireworks show?
Yeah.
So there's lots of things to come out.
Chase Field didn't, but now they have their roof open. So
ooh,
yeah,
boom roasted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, now
too much facility talk on this podcast.
Let's get over to the basketball side of things, specifically the men's team. Adam Miller, who apparently has eligibility left.
Not apparently. This is confirmed.
Definitely has eligibility.
I'm just going to keep saying that. Even if a guy's in a second year and be like, he has eligibility left.
Okay.
Adam Miller, he's in the portal. Leaving Trevor Best as the only contributor to the team from last year that is a holdover.
It is very interesting when you consider that none of the players who started 2024 to 25 with ASU will be back in 25 to 26. The only person who's coming back from the team is someone who joined in January.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
If that doesn't say enough on itself, then kind of the next point we'll add to it.
Yeah,
because
Leo Curtis.
Yeah, the 7'1" Icelandic center who had been, I believe, the first commit in the 2025 class for ASU.
Yeah, and I was excited about him.
Yeah, very excited about him.
He's not
stretch
ranked he's not ranked on 24/7.
Well, that's just because foreign things, but
he's a 3-star on 3.
I think he really would have helped, especially when you consider that no one else on this team is taller than 6'9".
Yeah,
ESPN still has him committed to ASU apparently.
It seems like anyone 6'11", 7 feet around that range, 7'1", seems to not really vibe with what Bobby wants to do. We've seen it for a while now.
You don't even have to do the height qualifier; it's any person.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, pretty much any player.
All right, that's gonna be it for our basketball.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you just want to, anybody that like plays for Bobby Hurley ends up not wanting to play for him anymore. So there's that.
They did get a stretch 4 to commit.
Yeah, this might actually be maybe the best addition as far as strictly who can contribute to winning basketball without considering roster fit and things like that. I think Andrea Gerbovich might be the best
Couldn't have
player.
said it better myself.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
see what you did there, Jeremy. You tossed it over to Damon so you wouldn't have to say it. Congratulations.
So he's coming over from the Adriatic League, which is a league I'm very high on out in Eastern Europe
Do
area.
you watch this league?
I
I
love
have
this
watched
guy's the
this
best.
league.
Hold on 1 second. I need to get into this. How often have you watched this league?
Not as much within the last like 9
What
months
is,
or
like,
so,
the-
but before that,
What
a
time
lot.
of day do you watch this
At night.
Okay.
I'm an insomniac, and so
Okay,
at night
so-
I watch basketball.
Question: if you were like the two leagues outside of the NBA that you watch the most in professional basketball would be what?
EuroLeague and Adriatic League.
That's crazy.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you, Damon.
We're not counting NCAA as a league.
No, I'm saying professional. Like
Yeah,
after
okay.
and
Yeah,
like
EuroLeague
like
and
after like
Oh, are we talking about all
Both-
sports?
like above G League and the NCAA. That's what. No, in terms of men's basketball,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
EuroLeague and Adriatic League.
it's incredible.
Nothing in the Australian league.
Who's the Celtics of the Adriatic League?
It was Real Madrid for a while.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still them. I'm,
Okay.
not following it as much in the last year or so. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah, Gerbovic he's a stretch four. He's not someone that's going to create a ton for you. But I think over half of his offense was spot ups, and he was like 48% on threes.
I love that because they needed a shooter on
Yeah.
this team.
And
I mean,
someone-
that's kind of what Adam Miller added to this team last year.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with this. Bobby needs shot creators because he doesn't really run an offense.
I'm sorry, have you forgotten that they have someone who's top 5 in assists per game last year?
Sure, but like
Wait,
they
Adam-
still need shot creators.
Wait, Trevor Best was top 5.
Mo Odom, Pepperdine.
Again, we're talking about group of 5
Pepperdine.
Top 5 in assists per game.
major transfers.
Okay,
They
and
need
so
shot
this,
creators
all
because-
of this is kind of what gets us to one of our other points, which is that there's really not a lot to feel good about.
Georgia
with this
Southern
program.
guy.
Yeah, so
Holloman.
right before we get on, Georgia Southern guard Adante Holloman commits.
I said it right.
Yeah.
Holloman. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
He's
we went over this before the show.
6 feet tall, a really
Inside
good shooter,
baseball.
almost 39% from 3 on over 8 attempts per game. So that right there on its face, that's something you feel good about. The 6 foot, 160 pounds in the Big 12, that's something you do not feel as good about.
No, that was my point that I was going to make. 6 foot 165 for the Big 12.
Not even 165, 160.
Oh, 160? Okay, I thought it was 165. Yeah, that for the Big 12 makes me kind of nervous. So,
He
but
needs to-
he did
hey,
score
he
a lot
needs-
and he
you
can
know what?
shoot. So
If James
I'm-
Harden can talk to him about like the end of Houston days, James Harden, when he was trying to get traded,
yeah,
get him on that food regimen that whatever he was on.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
James Harden was just
Lemon
wearing
pepper
more
wings?
warm-up
I-
shirts.
I don't know.
He was
Lemon
just
pepper
wearing-
wings?
He was just wearing
Shout out
more.
James Harden right behind Jesse right now.
We all know though that like is it really speculation to say he was just wearing more warm-up shirts?
yeah.
Because he just all of a sudden looked skinny like a week later.
And then, meanwhile,
It's like cutting weight like if you're a boxer.
Okay, no.
while all this is going on with the men's team, the women's team found yet another player with a lot of power conference experience.
Good.
And that's point guard Marley Waschnitz from Pitt.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
She was there 3 years, and so now will be a senior here. I think that's like a combined 10 years of power conference experience from these transfers, if I'm not
Tough
mistaken.
because she shot 35% from the field last year and only scored 9.3 points. But
Oh, I've got a stat for you.
that's in the ACC, so it's a tough league.
ACC is a better league for women's basketball than the Big 12.
Right, but coming over here from the ACC, obviously 5'7", so a good size for a point guard in terms of height. What are you looking at?
Okay, so
Yes.
the things that I like are in 91 career games.
Yes.
She is averaging 4.3 assists, which is good. And she had a big spike up in shooting last year. She went from, I think, 15% as a sophomore to like 30% plus as a junior. And last year, almost half of her threes were off the dribble, where she shot 43% for some reason, compared to 28% off the catch. Which, if you know things about basketball, generally off the dribble is much harder than off the catch.
For sure.
So for her to be 15% better off the dribble than off the catch, and considering she's going to be a point guard with the ball in her hands a lot, you feel good about her taking those shots.
Yeah, from this clip that Damon is playing right now, if you're listening on the
Podcast.
podcast
There you go.
feed, then go check out I am Damon Allred on Twitter. then you can check out what Damon has posted about her. What I'm seeing is great court vision. The court vision's excellent, and I think that you need players like that. And I'm glad that she has so much experience playing in such a good conference. And I think, Molly Miller's really building a team. As I said here last week, she's finalized her staff now as well. If you want to go check out those hires, they're up on sundevilathletics.com. And so, yeah, I mean, she's
TheSunDevils.com.
TheSunDevils.com.
Yeah. What are we looking at?
We got a depth chart, kind of. It's starting to fill out.
All right, hurry it up because we got to get to baseball too.
Oh, okay, 7 players now for ASU women's basketball. I think there are 5 transfers here. 3 of the 5 are from power conferences, so feel good about it.
Cool. Baseball, getting back on track with a win over Texas Tech, 10-4. They had lost 3 out of their last 4 games, including 2 losses to Cincinnati, who, not great, and then a loss at Purdue. You think it's the cold weather? Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, back on track. They're 24-14. They're back here in Phoenix. They're playing at Muni, so go out and support the team. They're playing, okay baseball over the, entire season. They're playing good baseball, but recently they'd struggled. So hopefully they get back on track and just, sweep Texas Tech this weekend. Softball is 35-15.
32-15.
32-15, excuse me. After a 5-0 win over Baylor last night, the series continues tonight at Farrington. Then senior days for beach volleyball and lacrosse are tomorrow. Beach volleyball, they knocked off number 7 Florida State last week.
Pretty good.
Thoughts and prayers to everyone at Florida State as well.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Lee Corso retiring.
Yeah.
Sad news.
This was really the part of the podcast that I was mostly excited for today.
So I'm gonna get the stats real quick. Only came to Tempe once for the ASU USC game in 2005. Came a couple other times for different either Fiesta Bowl or different college football playoff or not actual like college football BCS championship
Postseason.
Yeah, BCS championship games or championship games, what have you. There were a few of those games, including the Miami Ohio State one that ended in controversy. So yeah. Sad. ASU was also featured on game day that he was at in 2007 and in 2011. Both of those were at Eugene, Oregon. Jesse, your
Yes.
thoughts?
So first off, he picked against ASU every single time, and he won every single time. So there's that. So Lee Corso.
Is that the cool
in those
fact?
games, yes, in those games.
Yeah.
Is that the cool
No,
fact?
that is not the cool fact.
Okay.
So yeah. I love Lee Corso. He got a lot of criticism recently, but he was an old guy, and it just made me happy to see him up there and picking the headgear. And his relationship with Kirk Herbstreit was wonderful. And I was always hoping that ASU would get a game day, and it feels like this year ASU probably will. So I'm gonna miss seeing him. I've never been to college game day live, so I'm never gonna be able to see Lee Corso live, which bums me out. I just think he was just the start of my Saturday mornings for so many years, and even if I didn't watch game day,
I saw the videos. Yeah,
I would go look up the video of the headgear pick.
Yeah, it's important.
Or I would turn it on at 9:55 a.m. because that's when they were picking the headgear pick. So I'm going to miss him a lot.
What you can do is you can tune into the State of the Sun Devils podcast for pregame thoughts.
That is true. And also,
plug.
And also, he has one more show. So August 30th, the last Lee Corso show on College Game Day. So I'm very excited for that. I'll be watching all 3 hours. I hope they let him just go for all 3 hours.
And just let him talk.
Just let him talk for all 3 hours.
He's gonna lose his voice.
That's fine. He's never gonna have to do it again. So
All
I
right.
just want it to be a celebration of Lee Corso.
Congratulations, Lee
Yeah.
Corso, on your retirement.
Love Lee Corso.
Yeah.
Yep. If you're watching us on video, we're doing the Lee Corso wave.
Jesse, what's
Or
your
if you're listening to us on podcast.
what's your fact of the day?
All right. So, in case people don't know this,
It's a great one.
Phoenix Municipal Stadium, the home of Arizona State baseball, has the light poles from the Polo Grounds in New York New York City.
From the 1900s, early to late 1900s.
I think they were the second iteration. I don't know that for a fact, but they were not like the first.
You gotta vet these.
No, this is true. We emailed with Sun Devil Athletics about this.
Yes, I've talked to Doug Tamaro about this, and yes, they got back to me that the light poles, even after the renovations at Phoenix Muni, are the same ones that were at the Polo Grounds in New York. And I have just a little bit of a tidbit.
At Yankee Stadium?
No.
I think the Yankees did play there for a little
where
bit.
the Giants played.
Oh.
The New York
Giants,
baseball
the Polo
Giants.
Grounds.
Yes.
Polo Grounds is a
the
famous...
baseball Giants.
There were baseball Giants?
Oh, man, I got a lot to talk to you about after this show.
There was a famous... so there was a...
Willie Mays made the over-the-head catch.
Yes.
At the Polo Grounds.
Yeah, the Polo Grounds...
The very famous over-the-head catch.
Polo Grounds was
You could be speaking a foreign language.
Okay.
Polo Grounds was a crazy baseball stadium, Damon, or anybody that doesn't know about it. So the dimensions were like 270 to left and right. It was really a football stadium. Like it looked better for football, but they played baseball there, and the center field was like 400 to 600 feet at multiple times. So it's just a really cool old historic baseball stadium with a lot of famous games that had went down there. So I pulled this from a 2015 Sports Illustrated article, and this is what it says. In the shadow of these light poles, Mel Ott used his trademark lead kick to smack the 511th and final home run of his career on opening day in 1946. Bobby Thompson hit his 1951 pennant-clinching shot heard round the world, which might be the most famous home run in baseball history. Well, maybe not the most famous because Hank Aaron probably breaking Babe Ruth is the most famous. But other than that, and then Willie Mays chased down a fly ball off the bat of Vic Wertz in Game 1 of the 1954 World Series to make one of the most iconic catches in baseball history. So these lights poles, super cool that they're there. And, as just a baseball nerd, it's something that I recently learned, and I think it's super cool, and you're not going to find that at a lot of places.
Yep. Anyway, good fact, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you.
I got a lot to talk to Damon about after the show. That's going to do it for this edition. What, you think the Giants... That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media. At AZ Sports Devils is where you can find us. You can find all of Damon's articles on the Arizona Sports app and ArizonaSports.com, presented by Y-Refi.
We have threads?
Yes, we do have threads. All forms of social media. For Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred,
I don't think we have a blue sky yet.
I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you soon.